3, 2, 1. All right, I got it. Apparently we're recording right now. I was looking for a screen recorder. This is John Edward Randall. I just wanted to explain to you. A lot of memory. I wanted to explain to you my definition of rights. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to go to my handy dandy PDF reader. Basically looks like it might have been created by a wizard. Or a 10-year-old child. Alright. So this is my basically SOLS, S-O-L-S, which is a systematic omnipresent life solution, which you're not supposed to know about it. So let me just do that. My legal name is John Edward Randall, but some people refer to me as John Edward Hope. Now let's look up the new state in the coming Antichrist, Crooks, which is drafted by John Edward Randall, CEO of X-Ray Corp. As we scroll down the page, we can get to one of the most important things that concerns the new state, and that is your right to self-defense. In order to use self-defense, we have to define what your rights are. And it's astonishing how oblivious these people are and how ignorant they are to their own rights. It's astonishing because obviously I'm bringing this up because it's not that they're infringing upon their own rights. They're infringing upon other people's rights because they can't define the boundary between theirs and mine. And that's exactly what I meant. So we have to define basically what a right is. In order to define what a right is, I started out by defining what an infringement upon a right was. And evil, so I'm just going to read this to you. Evil is a right infringed upon. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me? It's a right infringed upon. If you don't agree with me, let me read on. All rights are yours. You are your rights. Just like it says in the Constitution, except they define it a little bit differently, or they explain it a little bit differently. Your rights are inalienable. They're granted to you by your Creator. Okay? You are your rights. In a public arena, rights are mutual shared as well as private or personal to each entity involved in action. Your right or rights extend to the areas most convenient to your physical body or influence. Your physical body is your right or rights. In most cases, you and only you have the right to control your physical body and to place bars or to discipline it arbitrarily. When your body or your right is controlled by another entity without your consent, it is called an infringement or an act of evil. In the sole right to your body and to discipline it, you also have the right to protect it and secure its longevity. John Edward Randall. So obviously I wrote that. I'm probably going to be a professor, and I'm probably way more intelligent than you, unless you already have been living here for like thousands of years or something. Maybe you went to heaven. Unless I didn't go to heaven or something like that, unless you didn't go to heaven. Unless you went to heaven, I'm probably more intelligent than you. And you probably hate my guts because I stated that, but whatever. So that's basically what a right is. I wanted to define what your rights were. And it's astonishing, most people don't know what their rights are. They keep coming up with like these abstract and like esoteric ways to define a right. It's just like, you are your rights. He is his rights. That woman is her rights. If you infringe upon her rights, that's an act of evil. Okay? If you infringe upon my rights, that's an act of evil. If you infringe upon my body, for instance, if you inject me without my consent, this is what it says right here. I think this is a perfect definition. In most cases, you and only you have the right to control your physical body and to place bars or to discipline it arbitrarily. When your body or your right is controlled by another entity without your consent, it is called an infringement or an act of evil. So when somebody injects you without your consent, even if it's court-ordered, it's an evil act. I don't care if it's court-ordered. I don't care. I don't care if it's a part of commitment. If the person doesn't give you consent for you to touch their body, it's like in some cases we have to court order. I don't care. It's still evil. It's still evil. You infringed upon that person's rights. It's like, obviously we have to be reasonable about it. If the person is a terrorist, it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. It's like reasonable force. I see what you're saying. I am sane. I'm not insane. I'm sane. Look at the perfect way that I wrote your rights. I'm way better than most of these people who just infringe upon my rights. Like, I mostly never infringe upon other people's rights after the age of 18. Mostly never. In a public arena, I share rights with other people, which is why I'm allowed to say whatever I want in a public arena, most of the time. It's like, they can say whatever they want too. If my body begins to be touched in any way without my consent, then it's an infringement. I don't touch other people's bodies without the consent unless I'm using reasonable force. So I see where the reasonable force comes from. I see where that comes from. So we're going to have to deal with that later. It obviously is not reasonable to touch somebody or inject them when they haven't committed, when they aren't being violent or even aren't even being evil. Okay? It's not evil to step onto somebody's property. To step onto public property. It's not evil to do that. It's not. It's because, does the public property have rights? No, it doesn't. The public property does not have rights. Okay? All right, now we get into the gray area, which is basically like your right or rights extend to the areas most convenient to your physical body or influence. So basically, if you created something, you are your property. You are your property. You are your product. Whatever product that is, whether it be biological or creative in nature. So, if your blood, semen, spit, hair, mucus, what's this other stuff that they have at that blood place? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Okay, toenails. Okay, eyelashes. Okay, it doesn't matter. Whatever comes from your body or your right is also your right. It's your product. If you created something, that's your right too. It's more indirect when you create something. It's your product. It basically means it's a result of your physical body. Okay? If somebody rips up a paper or uses it without your consent, that's an infringement of your right. It's very easily to follow this guideline right here for the future. For the future. It's like, it doesn't really say what rights are. It's like, it's obviously evil to do that without reasonable force. We're going to get to that later so that I can define that later. This is The New State and the Coming Anticrux is a draft by John Edward Randall, which is myself, CEO of XJ Core. And I just want to share it to you what your rights are. So now you know. All right, today is December 20th, 2017. And I think that's great. And this is John Edward Randall. Have a nice time.